Have you ever had one of those moments where your life just changed dramatically? Like your life was suddenly divided into two chapters, before that moment and after that moment. Well, that's the kind of moment Justin had. Justin was adopted the day after he was born, so he never knew his birth mother. He was adopted immediately into a loving family who gave him a wonderful childhood and a great start in life. He always wondered about his birth mother, and he searched and searched for her. And at the same time, she was wondering about him and hoping they would eventually connect again. Then they finally found each other. This is the story of how that happened. And partway through our conversation, I surprised Justin with something. I love that part. This is a flashback episode, and Justin told this story here on the podcast way back in episode number 4. A lot has happened with Justin since then, and you'll hear him talk all about that right after our conversation. Real people in unreal situations.
There is a girl hanging by her broken leg from the telephone wire.
And I called 911 and I said, I found a baby.
I turned around. I see a gun pointed at me close enough I could touch it.
She would hold our heads underwater all the time.
He levels the gun, pulls the trigger, and I go down.
Her eyes were full of tears. She didn't want to leave us.
My hair catches on fire.
I swear to God, this image is burned in my head for the rest of my life.
I'm Scott Johnson, and this is What Was That Like? You're 26 years old, and you just met for the first time the woman who gave you birth. How does that feel?
I mean, there's honestly really no one way to describe how it feels. When I say that it's an emotion that I've never experienced, I'm not just saying that. It's truly something that you have to be in that situation to understand what that's like. And one of the things that makes it so interesting to me is that, most people who were raised by their their biological parents, they don't even think twice about it. They just look at their mom, they're like, that's my mom. Yeah, whatever. I see her every day. But it's something that's so sacred to people who are adopted because they never knew that. And it's so crazy because it's so special to me, but it's so commonplace to most people because most people were raised by their biological parents. And so when I met her, it was like I was seeing everything that I wanted to see my whole life. And when I looked at her face, I saw, bits and pieces of my face. And when I looked at my sister's face and other members of my family, it was like, it was unreal because, I mean, it was like I said, most people, they just look at their parents like, yeah, I look like my mom or whatever. But when I did, I mean, it moved me to tears because it's like, this is my bloodline. This is where I come from. And that's so incredible to me to witness, to bear witness to that and to see where I actually come from.
That's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're right. We take it for granted, or most people take it for granted.
Yeah. And it's
always been.
Yeah. It's just something like you don't think about, it's because, I mean, especially if you're raised by them, it's like, yeah, it's my mom. I love them, but it's nothing new. But to me, it's like something that's so common. It's like, it's just a whole world opening up to me that I've never seen before.
Right. Right. That's awesome. All right. Let's just go back a little bit and kind of get the backstory on what led up to this. At what age you were adopted as a baby? Is that right?
Yeah, I was adopted when I was about 1 day old, actually. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. 1 day old.
Yeah.
And do you know why? What were the circumstances that she decided to give you up for adoption?
Well, that's interesting because I mean, I knew, growing up. One thing is, I've always known that I've been adopted. That's never been a secret. And one of the things that my adoptive mom always made sure that I knew was that she never wanted me to think that Heather didn't want me. And I grew up knowing that. And when I finally met her, she explained to me, she's like, giving you up was the most painful thing that I've ever done in my life. And it was so difficult. She told me it was the longest drive home ever after she had to give me up. And she said the only reason she couldn't is because at the time in her life, she wasn't able to provide everything that she wanted to for me. So as hard as it was, she said she would rather let another family raise me just so that I could have those opportunities, because she wasn't able to provide those for me at the time, and she wanted what was best for me, and she had to sacrifice raising me just to give me that, which I think is beyond heroic.
It's what courage to make a decision like that. That's so difficult.
Yeah,
knowing that it's the right decision.
Yeah, that's the thing, and it's a mountainous decision. I mean, I can't even imagine. I mean, just passing on raising me just so that I can have what she wanted me to have. That's mind blowing to me.
And it sounds like Sandy, your adoptive mom, was very much aware of that and wanted you to understand.
Yes, absolutely.
What was behind that decision.
Yeah, she never wanted me to think that, oh, she didn't want me, I was an accident. That was never on the table. It was always like, the only reason that she didn't keep me was because she wanted to make sure I had the best life that I could have.
Do you remember how old you were when she first told you?
Honestly, I really can't. I think if I had to ballpark it, I guess I was probably around maybe 5 or so. I know it was kind of around the age where I could, a child can kind of start to understand that concept. So, but I know she told me as early as possible. She didn't want me growing up and it being a surprise. And I honestly think that's where like the bad stigma of adoption comes from. Like, and the funny thing is, like, growing up, when I would tell people that I'm adopted, they would be like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." But it's like, I don't really understand where that stigma comes from, because I'm like, no, it's fine. I was like, I like that. I embrace that about myself. But it was always an out in the open thing that I've always known it. And I think that's how it should be for any adopted child. I don't think it should ever be a secret and then suddenly revealed at a later age.
Right. Yeah. As soon as you're old enough to understand.
Yeah.
As a child, interacting with other kids and your friends, did you ever have any sense of feeling different?
Actually, no. I mean, for the most part, I mean, the fact that I was adopted never really kind of like stepped into my everyday life, especially like with kids and stuff. I did have a really good childhood friend. His name was Luke. We were best friends when we were really young, and he was also adopted. And I think that was one of the things that brought us closer together as friends. And
I bet. Yeah.
And it was really cool because we talked about it a lot, and it was just really neat. And he was the only friend that I had that shared that in me. But I think that's what brought us close. But no, I mean, for the most part, it was just kind of something that I told people as I first met him, and then that just kind of became a special fact that they knew about me. So,
did you, in the adoptive family growing up, did you have any siblings in that family?
Yes, I did. I had a sister. Her name was Brooke, and when they adopted me, she was 12 years old, and so now I believe she's 36 or 37 now, and she's but I've only had one sister, and that's all I've had, and she's always been much older, so I've never had a sibling like close to my age that I could kind of like. I mean, I've been friends with my sister, but it's different when they're 12 years older than you, because there's an age gap and you don't get along as well as somebody closer to your age.
Right, they're hanging out with other friends,
exactly,
and that kind of thing. Yeah. All right, well, let's talk about your search.
Oh,
how did you? Well, first of all, when you decided, how old were you when you decided you wanted to find Heather, your biological mom?
Honestly, it started out as kind of like something where I would say like, I might want to find them one day, because I know some people do, and I know there's like TV shows about that kind of stuff. I'm like, that seems like it'd be pretty cool. But when I was younger, I wasn't really adamant about it, but I was definitely open to the idea. But I kind of probably around maybe like probably like 12 or 13 when I started really like using computers and stuff. I was like, well, I could probably use the web to do some searching. And so kind of fast forward over the years, I would go on these like kicks where I would just like go into these deep searches, and I would try to find, like any kind of Heathers that would match up with the name. And I had sent so many messages to so many Heathers that I thought might be my mom. And so many of them were like, "Oh, no, sorry, but best of luck to you. I wish I was your mom." but I mean, yeah, it's just I've searched a lot, and I the thing is, I don't think my birth records were still. Well, the thing is, what kind of made me a little bit hopeless sometimes about finding him is that it was a closed adoption and very little information was exchanged between the adoption agency.
That was one of the questions I wanted to ask: is what information did you have to start with?
Oh yeah,
what did you go by?
Yeah, so I had two things. I had my biological mother's name, Heather. That's all I had. And then I knew that my mother's father was a preacher, and that's all I knew. And all I knew was the general area they lived in, and it wasn't much to go off of. But it's just a lot of failed messages here and there. But I mean, it's been a long search for sure. I mean, it's been a lot of effort going into this.
Right. Okay. So going on, just based on that information, how did you end up actually coming across the details that you needed to and putting it all together?
So basically, what happened was my Sandy sent me this link when I was I don't remember where I was when she sent it to me, but it was an article, and it was an article about a preacher, and she texted the link to me for the article. She said, "I think this might be your grandfather. You might want to look into it." And I was like, "Oh, okay, well that's cool." And it was an article from 2014. And it was like some sort of event they were having, and it was like a promotional article, if I remember correctly. And
this event was here in Florida, is that right?
Yes, yeah, it was here in Florida, yeah. And so I was like, oh, okay. I was like, so I Googled the name, and I came across an obituary, and I was like, huh. And so I clicked the link, and I found it. It was my grandpa. And he had passed away. And the crazy thing is, he had passed away about 2 weeks before I had found all this. So I was so close to meeting him. I mean, I was thinking, like, I was like, this really happened. I was like, did he really die? I was like, what kind of timing is this? I'm like, but I was mind blown. But so I read the obituary, and I looked at his wife, and I looked at the survived by section, and then I found it said he is survived by this, that, and his daughter Heather. And I was like, no way. I was like, this has to be it. I was like, this has to be the first solid lead I've ever had, And so
too much coincidence there.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was like, there's no way that this is a coincidence. I was like, this has to be her. So I tried to search her up on Facebook and Google, and I still kind of came up empty-handed with that. But then I searched his name, or no, then I searched his wife's name, and then I found her on Facebook. And then after I found her on Facebook, I was like, oh, I compared her to the picture on the obituary, because it was him and his wife in the obituary, and so I was like, oh yeah, that's his wife. So I sent a Facebook message to her, which is my grandma, and I said, hey, I was like, my name's Justin Walker. I was like, do you have a daughter named Heather? And I never got a response from her, but I looked at her friends list, and then I was able to find Heather on her friends list. And then I looked through, and then I just started crying. I was like, this is her. I was like, this is my mother, because I started seeing my own features in her face and just seeing her doing stuff. And I was like, it's truly bizarre to witness that for the first time ever when you've never had before.
That's got to be, the only thing I can compare it to is when you buy a lottery ticket and you're reading the numbers and it says that you just won $50 million.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're outside of your own body thinking, is this really happening?
Yeah. It's exactly what I felt. I was like, this is actually happening. I was like, so many people, go on this chase that so many people go on this chase that I've been going on, and so many people come up empty handed all the time. But I actually found it, I found the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, it's just so sought after.
All right. Now, so when you found her on Facebook, you contacted her by sending a Facebook message?
Yes.
And she replied to that message. Can you just read that back and forth message exchange between you and your biological mom, Heather?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Hold on. Let me get it up here. Here it is. Okay. Let me just go to the top of our messages here.
And this was only like 8 weeks ago that this actually took place.
Yeah. This happened like at the tail end of May. So yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
Okay, here it is. Okay, so I said, hello, Miss Davis. My name is Justin Walker, and I was born in March 8th, 1992. did you give a child up for adoption during that time? And then I said, I understand if there's a chance that this might be a sensitive subject. And a few days went by because I know Facebook's a little finicky. If you're not friends with somebody, that, you know, they won't get their message or whatever. And then one day, I was wrapping up at work. I get off work at 5 o'clock and it was 4:30. And then I get a Facebook notification. And then I just started shaking. I mean, it's truly unbelievable. She says, oh my gosh, Justin, yes. Are you my son? And that was just, I mean, that hit me like a brick wall when she said that. She said, I have prayed that this day would come. When I saw your birth date on the message, I cannot even put into words the joy that came over me. Are you in Florida? And I mean, talk about feeling like you won the lottery. It was like that tenfold right there. It was.
That's amazing.
And then
so how did you respond to that?
So I said, I absolutely don't even have words right now. Yes, I'm definitely your son. I said, I am in Florida. I said, I'm currently staying, I'm staying in Lakeland for the summer because I have an internship here. And I said, I've wondered about you my whole life, and it's just indescribable to put a face with a name that's always meant so much to me. And then to that, she replied, she said, our whole family is beyond thrilled that you have found us. You have no idea. Justin, we live in her hometown, Florida, about 30 minutes away from where you are. I knew that your adoptive parents lived in Florida at the time of your birth, but I didn't know where. I'm so happy you are close. God is good. Do your parents know that you have reached out to me? We looked at your photo on Facebook, and there's no doubt that you are my biological son. So much resemblance. You are such a handsome young man. I'm sure you have a lot of questions to which I am happy to answer. We want to hear all about your life. If you are okay with it, we would love to see you. We're going on a trip Friday, but we'll be back. And then she started asking me like what I majored in college, and then it just kind of like goes into stuff from there. But
so what's going through your head as you're reading this?
Well, so she sent me the message, and then I was like, I don't know if I should respond right away. I started calling my mom, started calling my girlfriend, I started like calling everyone, and I was like, this is really happening. And so I was sitting in my car when I said the reply. And I mean, my heart was just about to jump out of my chest. I still couldn't believe this. I mean, it was just it didn't feel real is the thing. It honestly didn't feel, it felt like I was in a dream or something. And, I get the shakes just talking about it, but I mean, it was just unbelievable how that I was actually talking to her. Like the person who gave birth to me 26 years ago. Now I'm talking to them on Facebook Messenger. Like if you told me I was going to do that, if you told me I was going to be doing that like a week ago, I would have told you lost your mind. You know?
Right. So, because you've been searching so long and hitting so many dead ends.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now all of a sudden here it is.
Yeah.
All right. So you guys decided to meet, and where did you actually meet each other?
So we at first we were talking about like maybe meeting in a park or maybe like at a restaurant or something, but we ultimately came to the conclusion that, you know, a restaurant might be a little too loud. And also I don't want to cry in a restaurant, like with a bunch of people. And it was really, really hot. So we're like, a park might not be the best idea. So she was like, she's like, you're more than welcome to come to our house. And I was like, okay, sure. I was like, we might as well. And so we scheduled for that following Friday. And then me and my girlfriend traveled up to meet Sandy in the town that they were in. And we stayed in a hotel that night, and then we got up in the morning and we went straight to the house. And I remember, so I got out of the car, and I told them that I wanted that first moment to be with you know, only me and her, just because that's what this is all about. Not out of selfishness, but you know, it's I felt like I had a right to that. You know what I mean?
I think everyone understands that. Sure.
Yeah. So I did that, and I walked up, and they were recording me, and they had I was walking up to the door, and I was about to knock on the door, and I remember my hand just started shaking. I felt like I was starting to lose control of everything. And I told myself, you know, once this door opens, my life changes forever. And that is just lots of pressure. And I feel like anybody in my position, another thing that I was so nervous leading up to this, because I mean, I knew I wasn't going to disappoint, but I feel like anybody in this situation has some sort of pressure to, you know, be what they wanted you to be. You know what I mean? Even though it's dumb, because I know they would love me regardless of how I turned out. But so anyway, so I knocked on the door, and they opened up the door, and then because my mother opened up the door, and then it was her, my dad, my two sisters, and my grandma were all there, and they were all in tears, and it was like I was looking into another dimension through that threshold. I mean, so I just remember I just lunged into my mom and just hugged her as tight as I could, and obviously we both just broke down and started sobbing, and
I'm sure everyone there was.
Oh yeah, everybody. I mean, it was just we were just swimming in tears. Everybody was crying.
It's overwhelming enough just to meet your mom, your actual birth mom, for the first time, but then to have you just got a whole new family.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like my family has expanded largely now, and that was one of the most interesting things. And another cool thing that I thought was just amazing was the fact that my birth parents are still together. And the interesting thing is statistically, because they were young when they had me, and statistically, couples that go through that usually don't stay together. It's the vast minority of them who do. And when she told me, later on in our Facebook conversation, she told me that she said she said I'm still with your father. I'm married to him. And she said, you have two full blood biological sisters. And then, I felt like I was flying because I was like, and she said, one of them's 16, one of them's 19. I was like, you're kidding me. I was like, that is nuts. Because something that I always thought it would play out that I would meet them and, she remarried and I have maybe like a half sibling or something. But I mean, it's like everything's just untouched. Everything's exactly how it was, which is, whew, it's a trip.
If you could have scripted this, it couldn't have turned out any better than what you would have wanted.
Yeah, no, truly. And we talked about that when we first met. After we stopped crying and calmed down and sat down, we talked about how this literally could not have gone any better. And I'm so grateful for how it is, because I've heard lots of horror stories where people go after their biological parents and then it turns out to be disastrous, and it ends up just scarring them. And maybe they're like, I don't want to have anything to do with you, or, I feel like everyone kind of like worries just a little bit about that in the back of their head when during this search, because it's a very real possibility and you have to prepare for that. Right. But I'm just so grateful that everything just worked out perfectly in unison. And another thing that I thought was really neat was that my sisters grew up knowing about me, which I thought was so cool. I wasn't a surprise to them. As soon as they could understand things, she told them that they had a brother that was out there somewhere, but they knew about my whole life. And so it was equally special to them to meet me as it was for me to meet them.
Wow.
Yeah. It was powerful.
Now, were you, once you've met them, were you surprised by anything unexpected?
I don't think so. It all kind of felt natural, to be honest. It all just kind of felt natural because, I went in there and immediately we just started like having conversation, and the conversation flowed really easily. There was no awkward points. I just felt like I got along with them. And another thing is I noticed like their mannerisms are similar to mine, which I thought was really cool because they are me, and mm-hmm. I think that had a lot to do with the fact that there were no awkward points. It was a very smooth transition, and it couldn't have gone any better. But there were no surprises for the most part.
What were some of the stories you wanted to share with each other?
Oh gosh, see, that was one of the things that we talked about. Like what's been going on in your life, and I don't think we shared a lot of stories at first, but I do know that Sandy brought my baby book, and it had like all these pictures of me doing things throughout my childhood and growing up, so that we kind of like looked at pictures and told stories of what's going on in those pictures. But I don't think there's any like really big hitting stories. I just told him that how I went to high school, and then I'm currently in college, I'm majoring in graphic design. But I think that's really the only thing story wise we touched on. But mostly I just talked about the photos, like here's me doing this and blah blah, and then I would elaborate on that.
Right, because that's your whole childhood, and she hasn't seen you. Yeah,
and I think that's what she was most interested in, because she wanted to see how I was developing, because she wasn't able to do that. And for years, well, her whole life, she said she always wondered like what what's he doing? And every time March 8th would roll around, she'd be like, I wonder what he's doing for his birthday. And it was even a thing for their family. I remember before my grandpa passed away, he would say that he would send a text to Heather and would say, it's March 8th. I wonder what he's doing. I wonder what he's up to nowadays. And it was always something. I was always present in their minds, which is something that I really hold dear.
Is there any particular stories that she wanted you to know?
Trying to think. So one of the stories that I know that she wanted me to know was, I thought this was really cool, and I didn't know this. My grandfather actually baptized me when I was a day old before I had to be separated with Heather, and I thought that was really cool. And that's another thing that I hold super close, because I never knew that, and I know that Heather wanted me to be raised in a Christian home, and I was, and I'm still Christian to this day, and I just thought that was beautiful that they did that, and it just amplifies just how much they cared about me. And how much they didn't want to let me go. And that just means the world to me.
I can imagine. Yeah. Well, Justin, since we're talking about some things that your birth mother wanted to tell you after all these years, I've got something here for you to listen to.
Okay.
It's a recorded message from someone, and even though you met this person only recently, you might recognize her voice.
Okay.
Dear Justin, at the time of your birth, I so wanted to be able to take you home and raise you, as I had fallen in love with you during the 9 months you were in my belly. All your kicks and movements were so exciting to me, and I loved to talk to you and had such a wonder of what you would look like. You were such a blessing to me through those 9 months. Although there was never a doubt that by placing you up for adoption was the right choice for you, I did grieve the loss of coming home without you from the hospital. Our whole family did. However, I had such a peace that God has had his hand in this since the beginning and always felt like you were okay. Every birthday that passed, I wondered, what does he look like? What is his name? What is he doing on this special day? I always hoped and prayed that someday we would find each other, but also had started to lose hope after so many years had passed and we had not connected. You were always in my heart, as well as your father's and your grandparents, who were there at your birth as well. The time I spent with you in the hospital was priceless and painful, as I knew that soon I would have to say goodbye and your new family would be coming to take you home. A few months ago, when I received your text message, I nearly fell out of my chair. There are no words to explain the complete euphoria I felt when I read your message. I was almost frozen for about 5 minutes in disbelief. This was a dream come true. The first time we met was so surreal. I could not wrap my mind around the fact that this precious baby that I had given birth to and held and said goodbye to 26 years ago was standing face to face with me finally. Meeting your adoptive mother was so precious to me as well. Here was this wonderful woman who I entrusted your life with and who fulfilled every promise about how she would raise you at the time I was pregnant. I owe her everything. You have grown into such an incredible, handsome, smart, and loving young man. I could never be more proud and thankful that I was the one blessed to give you life. You are and always will be precious to us, and we have always loved you more than you can ever conceive. Love, Mom.
Oh man, that even listening to that kind of chokes me up a little. Oh, jeez. Oh God. It's such a full circle and complete feeling to know that she's proud of me and she's proud to see what I've become, and that I mean, honestly, there's nothing. It feels like the ultimate accomplishment, for her to where I come from, my blood to be proud of who I am. That's just so fulfilling.
That first day you met, how long did you talk?
Oh my gosh. We talked pretty much all day. I got there, I think at around 10 or 11, I believe. And we cried for about 30 minutes and then we sat down and then we just, I remember Sandy had, the baby book and that we looked through those. And then another thing that I thought was amazing was I found out that Heather actually had a baby book of her own. And I thought that was so cool because it had pictures, even though she only had me for about 24 hours, she took as many photos and as many, happy moments as she could so that she could have that. And she had my wrist strap from when I was an infant, and she had that in there. And she had photos of, her holding me and stuff. And it meant so much because, as little time as she had, she wanted to make the absolute most of that 24 hours because, as far as she knew, that would be the last that she would ever see me. And it was just, it made me cry, but it made me smile. And just to seeing those pictures, because, when I look at those pictures, it's like, those are now those are now the earliest photos I've seen of myself.
Right.
And it's just a sense of origin to see those. And it was beautiful. But yeah, so we talked for, I remember we talked for about 3 hours and then Sandy had to leave because she had to go to New York with my sister. They had like a trip planned already. So she had to be back where I'm from and they had to catch a plane. But after that, Brandy and I stayed behind and we talked with them more and more. And we just kind of like started talking about like little things that, normally you would find out over the years naturally. But we started talking about, like your hobbies, you like spicy food. What's your favorite this? What's your favorite that? We started talking about all kinds of stuff. And I remember feeling one particular time when it was me and my girlfriend Brandy, and we were all of us were just standing in the kitchen, and I just kind of had this not to sound exaggerating, but kind of like a sort of an out of body experience real quick because I kind of felt disconnected from myself, but not in a bad way. It just like the sense of is this happening was so profound that I honestly felt like I was like what my eyes were seeing. I was watching it on TV. It was just like, because I just still couldn't believe it. I don't think my mind was truly wrapping around what was happening, that it was finally, culminating after all this time. And I was casually standing in a kitchen talking with my biological family. And I never in a million years thought that would happen, but it was beautiful. And
now when you were first born, did Heather and Sandy meet each other face to face at that time?
No, they'd actually never seen each other. Because what happened was, there was they got me through an adoption agency, and they had I remember Heather had to leave me at the hospital, and then the adoption agency, one of the attorneys, they came and got me, and then brought me outside to Sandy and my family, Brooke, and so, but yeah, they never met. And one of the most fascinating points was there was a photo of the attorney carrying me out to Sandy, and Heather thought that was just so cool, and I did too, because that was the connecting point that she never got to see, because that photo was taken maybe 20 minutes after she said goodbye, and she got to see what happened afterward, and I can't imagine the closure that has to bring.
And so now they've also met for the first time.
Yeah. And, when, as soon as Sandy hugged Heather, that was also crazy to see, my adoptive and biological mom, like hugging, I was like, another thing I never thought would happen. That was just, crazy to see. And they met, and they, of course, they both just sobbed when they hugged each other, cause they're both so special to me in different ways, but it's
a whole lot of good crying going on in this whole situation.
Yeah, it was nuts.
All right. Well, going forward, how many times have you met since that initial meeting?
So we met. We met our first time, and then we met 2 times. We met a time after that, and then I believe the time after that was Father's Day, and I was like, "This is a perfect opportunity," because I'm going to get to spend my first Father's Day, with my biological dad. And kind of like elaborating on my dad a little bit, one of the cool things about that was my adoptive parents have been divorced since I was about around 10 years old or so. So it's been a very, very long time since I said the word dad, called someone dad. And I kind of like, growing up like in teenhood, like I taught myself, like how to shave, how to talk to girls, this and that and stuff. So it was, I kind of forgot what it was like to have that father figure. So when I found, when I met him, we immediately hit it off. And he's one of the things that I loved so much is that he's real jokey. There's a lot of reciprocity between us, and we're real just like, back and forth and joke around. And he's just real easygoing. And I mean, honestly, I just see myself when I look at him, and that's what makes me so happy. I mean, immediately there's a connection. I have a lot in common with this guy, and I know we're going to get along. And I mean, I can't wait for the memories to follow.
Yeah, he's got 26 years of corny dad jokes to catch up on.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's for sure.
Do you feel like you really, quote unquote, know each other yet? Or is there just a whole lot still left to explore?
Honestly, I think a little bit of both. I think, because, well, kind of rewinding, I forgot to mention this earlier, but before I met them for the first time, Heather was like, if you can, like, she's like, I'd love to talk to you on the phone. And I was like, oh boy, I was like, nervous. So I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Because I want to hear her voice. And I remember I was so nervous to make that phone call because, I'm about to hear her voice. And the craziest thing, as soon as she picked up the phone and she said hello, I know this sounds dumb and I know it, but I swear her voice sounded familiar, and I don't know why, but I feel like I'd heard her voice before. And I felt a sense of comfort when I heard it. And I'm not sure, because I know they say you can hear your mother's voice when you're in the womb. I don't know if there was like some circuit way, way, way back in the back of my head that got lit up after all these years, but I felt like I knew it. So going fast forward, I mean, I felt like there was an instant connection, and I feel like I've learned a ton about them. But at the same time, one of the beautiful things about it is I feel like there's still so much that we have left to learn about each other. And that's what makes it so exciting, because there's so much, uncharted territory. We don't know everything. So, and I think that's amazing that, as time goes on, the more I meet them, the more opportunities I'm going to have to learn more about them and spend more time with them. And that's what makes it so exciting.
What are your plans now for regularly connecting with each other going into the future?
So as for right now, I have one more semester. My college is about 7 hours away from where they live. So right now I'm going to go back to school and finish my last semester at my college. And then my plan right now is to, after I graduate from there, I want to see if I can find a place close to down here, because, I want to live like, somewhere near them so that I can keep this up regularly. And so after I graduate, I definitely want to find a place where they are accessible, where they can be a drive away if I need to be.
Right.
And
what I was thinking, when you go back to school, if any of your classes have an assignment, write an essay what you did this last summer. I think you're going to have the best story of all of them.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. And the thing is, every person that I've told this story to, they're always like, you're going to remember this summer for the rest of your life.
Yeah. I was thinking you could plan and go on a cruise together. Yeah,
that would be pretty cool. I think we actually talked about maybe like going on a vacation sometime. I think that'd be really cool. Just kind of like a family vacation. I think that'd be pretty cool. Another thing was I thought was so cool. I think this is just another crazy coincidence. Is she told me that I have an aunt and uncle and some extended family that live about an hour from where my college is. So whenever I go back in the next couple of weeks to finish out my last semester, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna take a few weekends and a weekend here and there, and I'm gonna go visit them and meet them for the first time. And they're just they're just as excited as everyone else. I mean, like I said, this whole thing has just caused an earthquake reaction on both sides.
A good earthquake.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Is there any aspect of this story that we haven't talked about that you want to talk about?
Oh yeah, I guess I can elaborate on my sisters a little bit. So yeah, my sisters, they're just to kind of elaborate on them. It's also been just super cool to see them, and because like I stated before, I had a sister growing up. And, I loved her, and, we got along, but she was much older than me. So it was never really you get what I'm saying? There's it's better to get along with someone that's closer to your age, just because you tend to have more stuff in common. You hang out with the same people, kind of stuff. And I thought it was so cool that I had sisters that were closer to my age, and I was like, oh, that's awesome, because we're going to get along great, and we do. And I text them every day, and we have each other's Snapchat and whatever, and we just like chat here and there, and we just check up on each other. And when we meet in person, when we just talk, I mean, the conversation will just get flowing, and it feels so natural, and it's just that's just the natural beauty of all of this is everything just feels absolutely the best it could be. It feels perfect,
Yeah.
I get along so well with my sisters and everybody as well. So,
Justin, I know some people that are listening to this are people that have been adopted and they haven't found their biological mother or father yet, but they're looking, and they might be nervous or not sure how it's going to turn out. What would you say to someone like that?
Well, I'm really glad you asked me that, because I do have a strong opinion on that sort of thing. I think anybody who wants to find out where they come from, I know that if it might be scary going into it, because this is a world that you don't know anything about, and it could go anyway. But I think ultimately, I think it's best to go for it, because honestly, you never know what could be in store. Absolutely, I mean, even if it doesn't work out, I mean, at the very least, you'll have closure for that. I mean, I think it's such an important thing to know where you come from, and to see your own blood, and people, when you look at people, you see them in you, and I think that's something that anybody who can experience should experience. And I think absolutely just give it a chance, do everything you can to just at least meet them, and if you meet them and if it doesn't work out, at least you know what I mean? Because I mean, it's just that kind of closure is just so fulfilling either way.
Right.
So, I mean, if there's anybody out there who's, wondering, I mean, please just absolutely go for it. If either way, you'll feel full circle either way. It's very important to see that and experience that if you can.
And their family might be looking for them as well, and want to connect.
And that's the thing, and that's the coin toss. It's like I mean, if they are, then you can have your families. Now your family's huge. Even if you've already had a big family, you gain more members, and it's amazing to me to know that they're going to be at my wedding when I get married. They're going to be at my college graduation. They're going to be this and that, and it's my family, and I'll always have them in my life no matter what, and that is just. I mean, the definition of a blessing. It's amazing to know that, but absolutely. I mean, just don't, even if it's scary, at least find out for yourself. You'll be glad you did either way.
All right. Well, Justin, this is such an awesome story. And I'm really, really glad that you took the initiative and that you guys were able to connect. And I think it's going to help a lot of people in hearing this too. Both people that are adoptees and families that gave up their child for adoption, knowing that there's a really, there's a possibility that you can connect and be a blessing to each other. For people that want to talk to you or want to contact you in some way, you gave me your email address, and so I'll put that in the show notes. So if somebody wants to send you an email, then they can do that. And
absolutely, yeah.
And once again, Justin, great story. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Absolutely, Scott. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to get it out there, because that's one of the biggest. I want this story to be shared as much as possible, because it means so much to me. And posting in here on different websites and see people's reactions, I just love to see how it moves people. And I thank you for this opportunity to get it out there even further. I really do.
Justin, it's great to have you back here on the podcast.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be back. It was great hearing from you again.
I know you've had a lot of things happen since we last spoke, and we're going to talk about that. But I want to ask you first, how often do you get to see your birth mother, Heather?
So we see each other we like to make an effort to see each other probably around once every couple months. She lives about an hour away, still in Seminole, so it's not like we have too many opportunities to see each other, since I work from home, and we're just pretty busy overall when it comes to the weekends. But I would probably say like once every month, once every 2 months kind of ordeal. But we talk regularly. So
Now you've had like I said, you had a lot of stuff happen. I mean, it's been 5 years, more than 5 years, like 5.5 years since you've been on the show. You graduated college. You were in college when we spoke, right?
yeah. That when we spoke, that was my that was during my last semester is when we spoke. Yeah, and that was right before I graduated.
Am I correct in saying what you graduated in is not the work you're doing now?
Right. So about that, so when I took on graphic design as a whole, when it came to a major, it's kind of tricky because the whole idea of it was that I loved creating and I enjoyed using the software. But when it comes to real world application, one thing that I've learned is that like the practical use of it in the field when it comes to like big companies is it's mostly just kind of like churning out the same thing. It's not so much about the design itself as it is about like the measurements and metrics and machinery. There's a lot of big machinery involved with a lot of companies now. So I don't know. I just, as I went on, I didn't really feel like it fit what I needed to. I didn't really feel like I was making any sort of a difference. But now I work for Humana. I help manage people's policies with insurance and I go over the information with them. I reach out to doctors. I'm pretty much a jack of all trades when it comes to insurance as a whole now. And I've learned lots of different things about it. So, and it's extremely fulfilling. I love what I do. The people I work with, I have a fantastic superior. She's great. So yeah, I definitely just feel like things are just kind of on track how they need to be now. I did enjoy college for sure, but I definitely feel like I'm where I need to be at now. So
yeah, it's great to have work that you love for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you have also since gotten married.
Yes, yeah. So, it was a couple years after I met Heather and my family. My wife now, Brandy, we got married here in Florida at this little country club, and it was just absolutely beautiful. We searched high and low for some good venues, and it was just a grand slam. We all had such a blast with our friends and family, and got just a bunch of beautiful photos, and it was just an absolute 10 out of 10 experience. It was a lot of fun, and yeah, we've been married now for it was 2024. Yeah, so about this November will be 4 years together. So yeah.
Yeah, you better keep track of that time there, buddy.
Yeah. I was about to say 4 years. It hasn't quite 4 yet, but yeah.
That's a date you want to keep in mind and remember.
Yeah. Yep.
And you got another date, a birthday date of your youngest one now. When did that happen?
Yeah, so that was the 30th. That was the 30th of December. We always, me and Brandy made jokes about like, oh, hopefully it happens before the new year so he can be a tax baby. And so yeah, the 30th of December is when he was finally born. We went to the hospital on the 29th because she was scheduled for a C-section, and everything went swimmingly. It was a great experience. We had great doctors there, and it was just insane to see him there. And it was just really, really beautiful. But yeah, it's we've been trying for a long time, and good Lord blessed us. Thought it was time. So
you're a husband, a dad, and an insurance specialist. You've had a lot of stuff happening.
Yeah, there was when you reached out to me, that was the first thing I actually thought of. I was like, there is a lot of things that have happened since, and that's one of the reasons that I was like, yeah, absolutely, because I'd love to fill you in. And yeah, there's definitely a lot of big milestones and a lot of great things that have transpired. Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, there's another thing I want to ask you about that you mentioned when we spoke. You have had a pretty substantial weight loss. Tell us about that.
It's kind of inspirational to myself. I don't know if it'd be anyone else, but I'd been pretty overweight for probably like the past 9-10 years or so, and I'm like a bigger guy, so I never really like thought about it that much. I have broad shoulders and stuff, but after Ash was born, something just kind of clicked in me, and I was like, I don't know, it was like this new awakened sense of like duty, I guess, to kind of be the best version of myself. Because I started thinking about it. It's like, I don't want to be running around playing with him and like be out of breath. I don't want to be out of breath when I'm like teaching him how to tie shoes, or I wanted to be at my full capacity for him, especially when he gets to the age, running around, and which he's already doing that. So I better kick it into high gear.
That takes some energy. Yep.
Yeah. And I started, I want to say March of last year. And, right now just clocking in at 50 pounds, and, got about 30 to go. And then, after that, I'll just maintain from there. So, but I've felt great. I have new clothes. It's been a fantastic experience. And so
It's got to feel amazing. And what was your method of doing that?
Yeah, so one of the things when I had tried weight loss in the past, one of the things that I had always tried or that I had always focused on was working out. I was like, oh, I'll just eat what I want, but I'll just work out. I'll just work out. And I tried that, no results. And I finally kind of came to a point where I was like, I kind of learned and started understanding that it's more important of what you're putting into your body rather than because the truth is you can't outrun your fork. I mean, and the thing is, once I've actually started putting an effort on my nutrition and staying in a calorie deficit, then my body has responded so much better that way, and the weight just comes off as long as I'm consistent. So just calorie deficit, that's the biggest thing that I can tell anyone who's serious about weight loss. Working out is great. It's a great way to supplement your weight loss, but that has to be king. Is that calorie deficit is, it's really helped me. So
yeah, I've heard the phrase diet for weight loss, exercise for fitness.
Right. Yep, exactly.
Well, that's kind of disappointing. You didn't take a magic pill or something that just fell right off.
No, but
okay.
you would be shocked at the amount of people who want those kind of pills. They're just like, I just want to eat whatever. And I mean, there's studies that show, people who take those weight loss pills and then they stop, they just gain it right back because they didn't develop any sort of healthy eating habits. So
there is no magic pill. Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah, so happy to hear about all these amazing things that are happening for you, and you're getting ready to move again.
Yeah, yeah. So, my wife Brandy, we've lived in Central Florida. She moved here about 6 or 7 years ago. Roughly about 6 years ago, because she moved with her parents. She lived in a small town called Hartford in Alabama. She's lived here since, and ever since we got married, we found a place down here. We lived in Zephyr Hills for about 2 years, which was great. Just a beautiful little town, very slow moving, very friendly people. And then after that, we bought a house here in Lakeland, which we've lived in for about, I want to say 2.5, maybe 3 years at this point. And so now we are going to be moving upstate to North Florida, where I'm actually originally from. And a lot of Brandy's friends and her close social circle are up in that area as well. Another thing that we took into consideration, was Ash and his future with, going like a preschool, or just because up in North Florida, there's a lot more quality choices for him. We want the best for him. So really just on all fronts, and it's the right move, and things have just been working out. Been very blessed the way things have been panning out for us. So absolutely.
Yeah, it seems like the right thing to do. Although, North Florida gets kind of cold sometimes.
That's true, though. But see, I love the cold, and one of the biggest things
you're
about
one of those people. Okay.
Oh yeah. See, and it's so funny because I was born and raised in Florida, but I just can't take the heat. I'm just not used to it. I don't know what it is. I mean, yeah, we're definitely looking forward to that. We're thinking either North Florida or maybe South Alabama, or somewhere in that range is where we'll land.
Well, Justin, it's great to hear from you again, and I'm really happy for you and your new wife and your new son, and I'd really hope things keep going well for you.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much. It was great reaching out to you, and yeah, absolutely, I appreciate you. It's been a pleasure to share the experience initially when I first spoke with you, and I'm happy to follow up. So it was great talking with you.
I'm so happy for Justin. He's living the life that makes him happy. You can see pictures of him and his family in the episode notes at whatwasthatlike.com/170. All right, I'm going to get kind of personal here for a minute, and this is not an ad. I'm not being paid to say this. I just want to tell you what's happened with me over the last year. For years, I've been trying to lose like 20 pounds or so, just to get down to what I consider my correct weight, which is around 170, 175. I'd lose a little bit, then my stupid brain would go, hey, good job. You can go back to your old habits. And then I'm back where I started. I've been tracking my weight every day for more than 5 years, and I could look back and see that I've been doing that stupid up and down cycle that whole time. How ridiculous is that? I finally figured out that I needed a coach to help me break that pattern. That's when I started working with Marcus. I met Marcus through a podcasting mastermind that we're both in because he has a podcast too. He said he could help, and he has a long track record of helping hundreds of people just like me. So about a year ago, we got started. Fast forward to today, I've not only lost the weight and I'm down in my goal range, but I also know how to stay there. It's no longer a cycle. Marcus gave me the tools to make that happen. Like I said, this is not a paid ad. I don't get any money or anything from Marcus for talking about him here. I just like to promote people who are really good at what they do, because I know a lot of people who are listening to this podcast can benefit by hiring him. If that's you, talk to Marcus. His website is thrivinglivesfitness.com. He's a real person and he loves helping people like you and me. Send him a message through the site and set up a time to talk about what you need. And then let me know what happens. Graphics for this episode were created by Bob Bretz. Full episode transcription was created by James Lai. And now, the listener story. Every episode ends with a story sent in by a listener just like you. Do you have a story of something interesting or unusual? Of course you do. Just record it on your phone and email it to me, scott@whatwasthatlike.com. This listener discovered how awkward it can be to fire someone. But that's not the whole story. Stay safe. Back in a week with a brand new episode.
I had just been promoted to a management position at a job I'd been at for a little over a year, and was about to take on a team of about 20 people. So the manager who was training me found out that the team was actually going to be cut down in half. So we were about to have to fire 10 people. She decided that's not how she wanted to leave the company. She was not going to do that. So she went ahead and left earlier than she had originally anticipated and made it my problem. So my first act as manager was supposed to be to fire 10 people that I had never really interacted with at all before. That was pretty anxiety-inducing and nauseating, but went ahead and this was during COVID. We were all virtual. So went ahead and the first gentleman that I called, he was very upset. It was completely out of the blue. He was very angry, very sad. He was also very worried because his wife and son also worked at the company in different departments. So they were not impacted, but unfortunately he was. It was a big mess. He kind of let other people know what was going on. It was not really the way that I wanted to start my career in management. A couple months later, I inherited another team from the same company, and his wife was on that team. I was very worried it was going to be awkward. You know, I had fired her husband. But it got more awkward when I got a message from 23andMe for somebody who was looking to put pieces together for their family member who had been adopted, trying to track down relatives and things of that nature. And she gave me the last name of the relative she was looking into, the connection that she thought she had made to that last name. And I said, well, I don't think I have any family members with that last name, but oddly enough, I do have an employee with that last name. So went back and forth, talked to my employee, and found out that my first act of being a manager was to fire my third cousin. So that was just fantastic. Just gotta love those coincidences. Hope you have a great day, Scott.